So I am part of the Lorraine W. Frank Office of National Scholarship Advising. And if you don't know where we are, we're actually in Honors Hall, just behind this picture. If you go on the second floor, you'll find our staff offices for everybody except me. I'm in Sage Hall. We'll talk more about that in a second. But our office works with students across ASU, not just in Barrett and not just undergraduates. We also work with graduate students, we work with recent alumni, and we help prepare them for nationally competitive, prestigious scholarships. So what we do on our campus is we work with students to help them prepare their application materials, but we also manage nomination processes for things like the Fulbright, for instance, which just went through, where we interview candidates who have applied, and then we figure out who among those people are the people we want to send onward to the national competition. The same thing will happen with the Killam. We will receive applications from around ASU, and then we'll have to narrow down the number of nominations that we make and forward to Killam Canada. In any case, we also coordinate faculty committees who evaluate your applications and nominate you. As I said, we helped you prepare your application materials. We give you advice on which fellowships you might be eligible for or not eligible for. We're fantastic. So if you don't know us, if you haven't set up a meeting to find out more about what opportunities are available to you, I would strongly suggest you're doing that. And in the meantime, if you go to the main ONSA site, which is onsa.asu.edu, you can actually get on our mail list. So every week we send out a big list of all sorts of opportunities that you can apply for. And it's always kind of sad when people find out about things that have just passed, because they're like, oh, it would have been a great opportunity. And we can't really help you at that point. So getting on our mailing list and just knowing when things are coming up is really a great thing to do if you're not on that list already. So I'm the Killam Fellowship Advisor. I'm Dr. Nilanjana Bhattacharya. I'm a faculty mentor here at ONSA. I'm also a full-time faculty member at Barrett. Dr. Kyle Mox is Associate Dean at ONSA, Director of ONSA. We have a number of other people in our office who are all happy to help you with all sorts of things, but I am primarily the person that will be working with you if you are applying for the Killam. So if you're making an appointment with somebody else to work on the Killam, they will likely tell you you should make an appointment with me. So you should go ahead and know that I'm your point person there. So the Killam Fellowship, as you can see here, supports academic exchange between American and Canadian universities. So you can apply as an American university student to spend either a semester or a full year at participating Canadian institutions. We'll see the list of them in just a second. And it's not just that you're an exchange student who's taking classes. There are also all these other opportunities that are part of the Killam Fellowship, related to cultural exchange and developing your leadership skills and also service opportunities. So this is open to American citizens who want to study in Canada as undergraduates. So as I just said, you need to be a US citizen. You have to be a full-time undergraduate through 2024, 2025 academic year. You need to be fluent in English. And if you're applying to a university that is a French language university, such as the University of Montreal or Laval, which are both in Quebec, you might need to demonstrate that you were able to follow Quebecois French and succeed. You need to have a really strong and competitive academic record. Does that mean you have to be perfect? No, you don't have to be perfect, but in a nutshell, we want to sort of see people be strong students here, because that means that they're more likely to be strong students somewhere else where they don't have the same support system in a completely new environment. So we need people to be strong and solid enough that they can succeed in this new place, but also we need people to be superior enough students to represent us well as American students on the Fulbright program. You will serve as an ambassador for ASU and for the United States, and we need you to not be that student who flakes out. So for that reason, your academic record is actually very important. So it is also the case that you get money if you go to Canada and you're awarded this fellowship. So the nice thing about ASU and Killam having a particular exchange relationship is that if you are on any kind of financial aid at ASU, if you want to go abroad to study in Canada at any institution, you should not be having to pay 1 cent more. Everything that is covered for you here under your aid package would be covered in Canada. In addition to that, right, you would be receiving $6,000 per semester as a stipend. So that might, in some cases, go towards your housing, or it might go towards your food, things that aren't usually covered by financial aid, your books, whatever it might be, travel. You're also going to be provided with health insurance, and there is also a 3-day orientation in Ottawa. You'll be given transportation to. That is in the fall. And then there's also a 3-day seminar in DC in the spring. And what happens there is that you meet with all sorts of people, future leaders, but also current leaders. You meet the people who are associated with the Fulbright. You get plugged into the Fulbright alumni sort of program and network, which is a fantastic network if you ever want to get a job, say after school, and are needing to expand your networks, which is pretty much everyone. So these are great opportunities, but in a nutshell, they're like roughly 15 to 20 students who are going to be selected from the US who are going to be studying abroad in Canada. And at the same time, there will be 15 to 20 Canadian students who are actually coming to the United States to study at institutions here, including ASU. So it is really an exchange. And when you have these things in Ottawa and in DC, you actually get to meet your Canadian counterparts, which is kind of great. So that is really a nice plus. Additional enrichment opportunities that are part of the Killam are this thing they call the Cultural Awareness Program, which is they're giving you 800 Canadian dollars to travel anywhere within Canada as you wish, to get to know the country, which is great. As I said, you also get looped into the alumni network and Fulbright network. So if you, after completing the program, were interested in doing an internship over the summer or during the semester, there is this Fulbright Canada alumni internship program that you can sort of find out about opportunities and then sort of apply to. Next, we also have the Killam Community Action Initiative, which you can apply to get up to 5,000 Canadian dollars to initiate a project that has some sort of environmental or social impact. It's a pretty amazing opportunity if you're the kind of person who likes to build things and organize things. And then we don't just drop you in a random Canadian city on your own. You will be connected to somebody who is like you, a Killam alumni, and wherever you are, and they will serve as sort of your contact person and help you sort of get acclimated to things. So it really is a wonderful program, and none of these things that are on this slide that you're seeing right now would be things that are actually part of most exchange programs. So these are really special things that are only part of the Fulbright program, Killam program. So what do you need to apply? You need to complete an application form, which includes the standard things that you might expect, like who you are, how old you are, what you're studying, all these kinds of things. It also requires a personal statement, which is about a page, single-spaced. It also requires that you fill out a resume, that you have 2 references, that you provide an unofficial transcript, and that you provide some proof that you're an American citizen. If you have a passport, then you can just make a copy of that and it's valid. That is a great thing to have if you're applying for the Killam. If you have not, for whatever reason, had occasion to go abroad yet and you've never applied for a passport, you should be aware that it now is taking about 3 months for people to get passports because there's a backlog. So if you were needing to apply to the Killam and you don't have a passport, you'd probably need to track down a copy of your birth certificate and make a copy of that to prove that you're a US citizen, or whatever other documents you might have. The references that you're going to want to contact are going to be including at least one academic person who's familiar with your ability to succeed in college level work. So if you have a really high grade in a class and you don't necessarily know the professor so well, I would say that might not be the best person to write on your behalf, because they also need to be able to assess whether or not you have leadership potential, whether you're the kind of person who works well with others, whether you're the kind of person who adapts readily to new situations and is flexible, and is interested in learning about new cultures, would serve as a fine sort of ambassador of the United States within Canada. So all these kinds of things are actually also important in addition to your academic record. So it may be that, especially if you're a first-year student, you don't necessarily know your first-year professors that well. If you don't know anyone, I would suggest making office hours soon and getting to know at least one person if you can. Talk to them individually so they get a sense of who you are. And obviously it's pretty nice if you're doing well in the class already. If you have somebody who has supervised you in a non-academic context, such as maybe looking over you as a boss or some kind of director of extracurricular program or club, or maybe director of a sports team or whatever you might be coaching on, if anybody has experience of seeing you in these kinds of contexts and would be able to speak to your ability to be a leader, to adapt to new situations, to work with people from all different kinds of backgrounds, and so forth, then that person, even though they're not a professor, would also be a fantastic referee. So in general, I would say you want to have at least one academic person as your reference, and the second person could be another professor. It could also be someone who is non-academic, but it should be somebody who is at a level or position that is higher than yours. So it shouldn't be someone who is a peer that is commenting on you. It should be somebody who is slightly above you in authority, if that makes sense. All right. The next sort of thing that we can talk about is, as I said, ASU is part of the direct exchange program. So we are able to nominate up to 6 people each year out of the people who apply for the Fulbright Killam. And Fulbright Canada, on the other hand, will look through all these nominees from various schools in the direct exchange network first, and they select 15 to 20 fellows in all. It is a case that people from outside ASU can also apply for this school. You don't have to be a direct exchange network member for students to receive a Killam, but those students who are not part of the direct exchange network wouldn't have the same kinds of opportunities to transfer their financial aid. They also wouldn't get preferential consideration within the pool of applicants. So it really is to your benefit to apply as somebody who's been nominated by ASU if you want to take advantage of the things that we've just been talking about. So what they're looking at when they get your application is one, sort of what case are you making for why you need to be in Canada? to study what you want to study, you're going to be asked to look at 3 schools or select at least 3 schools, first, second, third choice, and to get a sense of what those schools' strengths are in relation to your own goals and what you want to do. And you're going to need to convince people in Canada that they should give you money to spend time in Canada to do something that likely you can only do in Canada. So if you're making an application just to study something that you could study at ASU, that doesn't really make much sense, right? You're not likely going to get much consideration. But if you wanted to do something that is really depending on you're getting outside ASU, outside the US, and even more desirably having to do with Canada in particular, or looking at Canada and the US comparatively, then that would be actually a wonderful program of study that would rank you highly in their sort of list of considerations. They're also going to be looking at your personal statement. Are you able to talk about who you are at this point, what you're interested in, what you're hoping to do in the near future and in the long future, maybe, why and how this particular opportunity would help you get to the next stage of your development intellectually and just more wholly. We'll be looking at your transcript as well to make sure that you're a solid student and somebody who is bright. And as I said, also your letters of reference. So the people that you choose for those letters of reference are important. Okay, so last year in 2023, we had somebody who was selected and awarded a Killam, but in the end, they decided to not pursue the Killam and to defer, well, basically just withdraw from consideration, which meant that somebody else who was an alternate was able to go in the student's place. They had a good reason. They were sort of looking at a 3-2 program, and it didn't make sense for them to be off campus and be able to complete the schedule that they had decided they would do. So in any case, that's the reason why we don't have a 2023 person, but generally we've been sending at least 2 to 3 people every year. So we have a really, really good track record. So Jordan Heitzman and Maria Cornejo-Terry, and also Benjamin Ambrose, they were in Canada recently, and they're sort of all different majors. And in 2022, we actually had 5 people who were in Canada all at the same time, because the people who had been awarded in 2021 weren't able to go to Canada due to COVID and had their fellowships delayed for a year. So we actually had Julie Kaplan, who was at the University at Prince Edward Island. And we also had Anusha Natarajan, who was at Carleton University. So we'll look at just all these schools as well. And here you can see a nice picture of them. So the Canadian person is the person on the end. She's dressed very warmly, looks Canadian, right? From Dalhousie. So we have a really nice record of ASU students getting Killam awards, and we're very proud of that. So if you want to apply to Killam, how and when should you be thinking about things? Well, now is the time to start thinking about the Killam, and you have by showing up. So we'll see a list of the Canadian universities in a second that are part of the Killam network. What you're going to want to do is to look at all those universities and figure out which ones make the most sense for you to apply to. So typically, a lot of people want to go to the University of Toronto, and a lot of people want to go to McGill because they've heard of those schools and they're very prestigious. If you apply to those schools, you are likely going to have less of a chance of getting the Killam Fellowship. So there's an advantage to apply to schools that are all very good, but might not actually be as popular as selections from students in the United States. So for instance, if you wanted to study marine biology, because you can't really do that at ASU very effectively, on campus at least. Maybe you would want to go to Prince Edward Island, right? That would be an amazing place to do marine biology studies. Or it might be that you want to think about something around snow and climate change. So maybe you would want to go to the University of Calgary, the University of Alberta, where they have lots of snow, because again, we don't have these kinds of things right here, at least in Tempe. So there are a lot of different schools there, and it just takes some time and sort of learning what each of them are like, and what they're sort of specializing in and stronger in. And then you can make a case for wanting to study at a particular place because they have a particular location or a particular faculty member, group of faculty members, or curricular strength, whatever it might be. You have to know which schools are out there, and you have to know which makes sense for you. So researching the schools is really the first thing that you can start to do on your own, and then you can schedule an appointment with me. There's a link to do that from the main ANSA page. We'll look at that at the end. Then you're going to want to, after you meet with me, start coming up with your personal statement. It is only a page, single-spaced, and that sounds really easy as you could throw it together, but if you haven't done that before, it's actually kind of hard to describe everything that you want to do and why you're the person that they should give money to go study in Canada, and how this is going to change your life, and all these other things. You have to pack into a very, very small space, because that's your one opportunity to make your case with the committee. So working in those letters is important. And the beautiful thing is, if for whatever reason you don't get the Killam, the work that you're putting into crafting your personal statement is work that you can transfer to any number of other fellowship and scholarship opportunities that will follow. It turns out that how you describe who you are, what you're interested in, what you want to do in the future, it doesn't change from month to month. So once you spend the time actually finding the words to articulate all these different things, you can transfer that work to different opportunities, and you have a lot less work in the future if you do this just once. So you have nothing to lose from this project, from this process of applying, rather. You're going to want to, before the end of the semester, also meet with the study abroad office to discuss which programs you are applying to. And you're also going to want to meet with your academic advisor. You're going to come up with sort of 3 different sets of your hypothetical course schedules. As is the case at ASU, we don't necessarily know exactly which courses are going to be offered a year and a half from now, because people go on leave, people are hired, things change. So you have to come up with a plausible schedule of courses that would make sense for you to convince them that you need to be at this institution. So again, it might not be that those courses exactly are going to be available, but you're going to want to come up with 3 different schedules, one for each of your choice schools. And then you want to meet with your academic advisor, your major, to ensure that you're not going to fall behind in your graduation sort of schedule. So we want to make sure that you graduate on time. And so it is necessary to meet with advisors and make sure that everything adds up to you. You're not delaying or jeopardizing, you're graduating on time. Generally speaking, if you're in your first year, you might not know this yet, but everything sort of gets really hellish really fast after Thanksgiving, because you come back and there's like maybe 1 or 2 class meetings, and then you're in finals period, and then everybody just bolts and goes home. So it's probably going to be the case that you're not going to really have a lot of time while you're trying to do your final projects and take your exams in December to meet with your course sort of major, academic advisor, go to a study abroad office. So these are the kinds of things I would suggest doing over the next couple of weeks before Thanksgiving, ideally, and then you won't have to worry about that at the last minute. So we ask that you sort of have a version of your essay, like a complete draft, in by December 1st, and Dr. Mox and I will both look at them. We'll give you some feedback. You can continue revising those over break. And then you're going to come back and pretty much the same time, you're going to want to submit your final materials, which will be your final draft of your essay, and also your transcript, your theoretical schedules for there's 3 schools that you're selecting. You want to have your referees also submit their recommendations by January 15th. So all those things need to be ready by the 15th. And then over the next week or two, where we will assemble a committee of people to look at your applications and select which ones should be actually nominated and forwarded to the national competition. So that happens at the end of January. Just because we're in Arizona, not everybody knows a lot about Canada. So I just want to put a map up here of Canada. So we have a lot of schools, particularly in Ontario, and also a couple in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick. We have 2 in British Columbia, 2 in Alberta. So we do not actually have any universities part of the network that are in Yukon, Northwest Territories, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Oh, we do actually have something in Newfoundland. I forgot. Memorial University of St. John's is here. So if you go to Europe, you usually fly over this area, which is interesting. So some of you might know that the great majority of people who live in Canada pretty much live in the bottom half. And this state, for instance, has only like 35,000 people, I think, in the entire state, even though it's a huge area. Mostly Indigenous people live there. So any case, that's some Canadian geography for you very quickly. New Brunswick is very near, this is sort of Maine here, if you're thinking about geography. And if you're thinking about what is below here, there's like New York State, and Buffalo, right, is not so far from Toronto. So any case, and obviously this is sort of our border here with the northwest. And these are the participating universities. And I made a little map. If you want to click on the link, you can open a link that has links to all the schools, and you can see how most of them are on either side and not in the middle. So Acadia is in a smaller city in Nova Scotia, Brock is in Ontario, Carleton also in Ontario, but in the national capital, which is Ottawa. Dalhousie is in Halifax, Nova Scotia, McGill's in Montreal, in Quebec, McMaster's also in Ontario, Memorial's in Newfoundland, Mount Allison's in New Brunswick, Queen's is also in Ontario, St. Mary's also in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and then we have the University of Montreal and Quebec, and the University of Laval in Quebec City, and University of Alberta, University of Calgary in Alberta, and then University of Ottawa is in Ottawa in Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Toronto, University of Toronto is in Toronto, University of Victoria is absolutely gorgeous place. I have been there, very near Vancouver, British Columbia. And then we have the University, Western University, which is also in Ontario, and York, which is also in Toronto. So a lot of big cities right here that you can think about, a lot of mid-sized cities, some cases, some smaller cities, a lot of different kinds of landscapes, from maritime to Rocky Mountains to metropolitan sort of urban areas. So so many different opportunities here. Really great to think about all these different schools. So as I said before, program selection matters. You want to have 3 choices that you submit that you're actually happy going to. Once we had somebody who was dead set on going to McGill, and I said, what about your other 2 choices? And this person said, well, they couldn't really be bothered to find out about them, which is really not the way that you want to do things. And predictably, this person was not actually given her first choice and would have probably gotten the Killam if they had actually sort of outlined their second and third choices. All these universities are wonderful, so you stand to gain from wherever you go. But if you only select Toronto and McGill, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. It's fine if you have a really good reason that you want to be at those schools. Yes, you should say that's your first choice, but recognize that a lot of people apply to those schools, so your chances of getting into those two particular ones are going to be much more competitive. If you look to see where people have gone on the Killam website over the last 3 years, you get a sense of which schools tend to have a lot of applicants and which schools might actually be a little less popular, but then actually probably more likely that you're going to be able to go to. So they're not necessarily less popular for any good reason. It's usually less popular because people just haven't bothered to do the work to find out about them. So if you do a little bit of homework, this is an amazing opportunity that could actually be very likely for you if you play your cards right. Let's see. So what we're sort of asking you to think about is the fact that you should be happy at all three of your choices. And when you're thinking about which schools you want to apply to, said you could think about what are the particular academic programs that are strong there. Particularly, are they offering you things that you couldn't get at ASU? It might be a sub area or subspecialty in your major. It could be a completely different area that you wouldn't have an opportunity to study, such as we were saying, marine biology, or it could be that you want to study First Nations, sort of Indigenous literature, or you want to study something around sort of histories of Asian immigration to Canada in the early 20th century, which there was a lot. You might also refer to particular faculty members who are doing research in areas that you want to study. You could also refer to particular activities that they might have, clubs, or maybe the orchestra, or whatever it might be that you want to take advantage of. And then, of course, the city and their cultural opportunities. There's also just like hiking and all sorts of other places outside of campus that are going to be particularly, potentially at least, strong reasons why you want to be in Canada. We had one person who wanted to study what was going on with Indigenous populations and urban art projects. And so she had a really good reason that she wanted to be in Toronto, because there are a lot of organizations there that get public arts funding that are doing work with Indigenous populations. And she was able to build a very compelling application for that reason, because she says, most of the people who are doing this kind of work are in Toronto, and it makes sense for me to study things in that area there for that reason. So there's also this site called universitystudy.ca that you can browse through to look at the universities sort of more comparatively. So this may or may not be helpful for you, but we just give it to you as a resource. And here is where we are. I'm not sure what's going on in this picture here, but looks like Halloween, which is around the corner. So we, as I said, we offer lots of different sort of advising opportunities, so many different kinds of fellowships and scholarships that are going through our office. So you can subscribe to the weekly bulletin I was talking about that announces everything if you go to the main page, onsa.asu.edu, and then you can make an appointment with me or anybody else who works on other opportunities if you click this link. So if you are wanting to make an appointment for the Killam, you will automatically sort of be given in my sort of queue of appointments. But if you want to meet other people to talk about other opportunities, you can do that here too from the main page. So I'm imagining that some of you might have some questions, and I would be happy to learn if there are any questions at this point.